Here's another, I got several pictures. This is from another book. So there we are, bringing the membrane to threshold. All the sodium channels open, sodium channels closed, potassium channels open. We start to repolarize. So during this time, sodium channels they're closed. They're not going to respond. They're either opened or they are inactivated at this point. But once potassium is now hyperpolarized, we could get another signal if the stimulus was higher, if it was a stronger stimulus. From another book. This one is showing you what's going on with these little ion channels. See? Now you've got what's happening with the ion channels, and then excitability. So the neuron cannot respond at all until the sodium channels have completely closed and the membrane is being repolarized. Then the ability to get that neuron to fire again is steadily increasing until it's back to its normal, ready to fire again, once we get back to resting membrane potential. All right. The period after an initial stimulus, when a neuron is not sensitive to another stimulus at all. Wait a minute, I gotta move my little thing so I can see. A through E, one answer. What's that called? When it cannot receive another stimulus at all. Oh, yay! E is correct. The absolute refractory period, where it absolutely cannot respond again. And then I made this little chart for you. Get my little button out of the way. To make the distinction between graded potentials and action potentials. I was taking a picture of it, but you have that chart in your notes. To show you, where things are occurring, what opens the ion channels, what ions are we talking about. Graded potentials can hyperpolarize. Strength of the signal, graded, depends on the bigger the signal, the more sodium coming in, as opposed to action potential, it's all or none. There's no minimum for graded, there's a threshold for action. You can get the membrane to change even more with graded, but you cannot with action. Okay, any questions about that? Now, how fast that signal is zipping down that axon depends on two factors. First of all is how big is the axon. This is the axon from a giant squid. The giant squid is 39 meters long. Oh. So that neuron is really long. And it's wide enough that it's almost a centimeter big, which is a pretty big diameter for a nerve. But the other thing that protects it is that influences the speed is the presence of a myelin sheath. Now Now what the myelin sheath is doing is it's concentrating where the ion exchange is occurring down the axon. It increases the speed of axon transmission by 30-fold. In the peripheral nervous system, the myelin sheath is made up of Schwann cells, individual Schwann cells. In the central nervous system, it's oligodendrocytes, and it will be one oligodendrocyte will wrap around several axons in the central nervous system. But the point is to increase the speed. Now, the oligodendrocytes don't wrap tightly, but the Schwann cells do wrap very tightly, and your book shows you how they're wrapped. So what's happening here is that the action potential is jumping from one node of Ranvier to the next very rapidly, and that's called saltatory conduction. That means jumping, and entomologists call these hind legs of the grasshopper saltatory legs because they jump. So again, that's going to speed up that transmission. Which brings us to the disease multiple sclerosis, many scars. It's an autoimmune disorder in which the myelin sheath is destroyed over time. So it is slowing down nervous transmission. It is not curable. It's marked by remissions, relapses. So what happens is the action potential just goes away. It doesn't keep going all the way down the length of the axon, and it's because of leaking of the ions. And then again, there's not a lot they can do at this point. There's research, of course, but they just work at trying to control the autoimmune response. All right, the cells that produce the myelin sheath. See, I knew this question was coming. Sometimes I seem to be surprised at my quicker questions because I forget. This one I knew was coming. So the cell or cells that produce the myelin sheath are called what? And I see that I'm putting in a harder term and wasn't paying attention that PowerPoint capitalized, although the S should be capitalized for Schwann. That's just a typo. Oligodendrocytes is not normally capitalized. Yay! 2/3 of you were listening a few minutes ago. So, these two terms. Oligodendrocytes are in the central nervous system, Schwann cells are in the peripheral nervous system, and I made that word up. Myelin cell. Okay. Now, those nodes of Ranvier, what are they for? The purpose of the nodes of Ranvier. Pondering on this one. where's the myelin sheath? What does it wrap around? Axons. It does not wrap around dendrites. It does not have anything to do with the cell body. The myelin sheath is only found on the axon to speed up axon transmission. Because there were an equal number that picked B. Dendrites do not have the myelin sheath. Myelin is only down the length of the axon. That's it. It's not on the cell bodies, it's not on the dendrites. It's not on the axon terminal, it's just on the axon itself.